Hey, everybody. Welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy.
The Strait of Hormuz is still closed, reminding everybody it was open before the war. Prices were lower for everybody until the war, and it still remains closed. And of course, tragically, people, service members, our warfighters, who we care deeply about, are still dying. So what's different? Mr. Hegseth, Secretary Hegseth.
I think your characterization of this incredible effort as a failure is reckless. And I think it's irresponsible. And I think it smears the sacrifice of the troops that are out there making on behalf of the American people to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Shame on you and others who call this a quagmire and a failure, and then you want to turn around and say you support the warfighter. Either you do or you don't.
Secretary Hegseth, if you listen to my comments, you would have heard me say how amazing our warfighters are.
I heard failure. The word heard. I heard exactly what you said.
I will tell you how I use the word failure, because I use the word failure to their leaders. You, sir, are the failure, not the men and women who are on that front line, not the men and women who hold up their honor with distinction. But if there's a lack of a winning strategy, they're in harm's way. Their leaders have failed them. And that's what's happening. We have political leadership. You don't have a strategy. You don't have a long-term plan to actually win this war. Win the war. The men and women are going to be able to do it, but they need to have leadership.
Well, that was outgoing Democratic Michigan Senator Gary Peters this week at the Senate Appropriations Committee hearing. We'll get to all that in a moment. We also have S.E. Cupp back with us today. We'll chat with S.E. in a little while. But first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So let's get to our big thing of the week. I want to talk about Iran, the Iran war, the prosecution of it, the debacle, the quagmire, the cover-up, the lack of an exit strategy, and this hearing that took place this week where the administration is seeking an additional $76 billion from Congress to fight this war. This war, mind you, that has already, according to Trump, Hegseth, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio on several occasions said that this war is over, that we've won, and that we've obliterated Iran's military twice. Not once, but twice. But yet here we are, practically begging for a ceasefire, for a deal, for a peace deal, and escalating a war. Escalating a war now with a country that apparently has no military and in a war that we've already won and said is over. So clearly they've been lying to the American people every time they move their lips. And the New York Times this week reported that they're intentionally keeping the total of injuries from this war of our soldiers from us. Think about that for a second. Why are they doing that? Why hasn't there been a briefing by Joint Chiefs Chairman Dan Kane and Hegseth since April? Why is there no transparency? Why is the press shut out of the Defense Department? Did you see this hearing, Maddie, this week?
I did, actually. I'm not all of it because I can only take so much of it. Pete Hegseth is absolutely repugnant. He is incomprehensibly terrible at his job. Mm-hmm. We've never had anyone worse. He lied constantly. He claimed that the cost of the war now is $37 billion, which right. Every analysis is in excess of $100 billion. I don't know why he hasn't been called out on that in the hearing, unless I missed it. I never saw someone say, how did you get that number, which is like less than a third probably of what the actual number is.
Well, part of the problem with all these people in the cabinet and in Trump's circles is that they all learn from Daddy. They learn Daddy's tricks. Mm-hmm. They learn that lying, gaslighting, propaganda, deflection, obfuscation, all of it works. That clip we played when Senator Peters was just looking for a straight answer, and see how Hegseth flips it. It's like if you criticize him and the way the war is being waged, how dare you attack our soldiers? And he was very clear. No, if you listen to what I said, I have the utmost respect for our soldiers, for our military. They are taking the orders that you've given them and are executing as well as can be under the circumstances. It is the leadership. It is you and President Trump that is failing here. But that's their strategy. It's to gaslight, not be transparent, but say they're transparent. But also at that hearing, Hegseth was eviscerated by, I'm going to call him future President John Ossoff. But Georgia,
I like the sound of that.
Georgia Senator Ossoff, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. That dude deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. Because if I was in that hearing, if I was John Ossoff, I'd be like, you know what? I'd rip the microphone off. I would jump over the table and I would lunge at Hegseth. And they'd have to pull me off of him.
I'm glad he didn't do that.
Yeah. Ossoff is like, he just is so measured. He did this with Jake Clayton the prior week, who's been nominated to be DNI. His language is like a machete. He knows how to just cut through all the bullshit and eviscerate someone at these hearings. And even Republican Senator John Kennedy had to stop Hegseth in mid-sentence and say, we just want straight answers. Straight answers. Stop bullshitting us. This hearing was such an indictment of this administration that even Fox didn't carry it.
Yes.
They didn't carry it. Think about that. Why wouldn't you carry this hearing? Yeah, you carry every other hearing. Why wouldn't you want your audience to hear this? Well, the answer is obvious.
I think that's part of it. And I think it's also because a lot of the people who work at Fox remember Pete Hegseth. And they remember him as an alcoholic asshole.
They know his weaknesses.
Who couldn't even get past Sunday on his show.
Yeah. Well, we had 4 more soldiers killed this week. That brings it to 18 total.
Not according to the Pentagon now. They just removed 4 names from the list.
Yeah, can you believe that?
It's
no, but tell us why they removed
They
names.
can't tell you why.
No, there is an answer. It's because Trump decided that the 4 new ones, they don't count.
Because it was peacetime.
It came after the ceasefire.
Right.
No, as if that's not crazy enough. The crazy part is they died after the ceasefire, which he himself in the last 2 weeks has said is over.
Well, we know the real reason is the same reason they are continually covering the Kennedy Center where they removed his name. He cannot stand to have more troops die in his war of insanity than were killed in
it's
Afghanistan.
A numbers game with him. Remember the cruise ship at the
beginning
of COVID?
Yes.
I don't want to let them into the country and help my fellow Americans because I don't want it to affect my numbers.
Right.
That's when Congress should have removed him.
But the fact that we know from the Washington Post and other reports that there are potentially hundreds of injured soldiers that are not being talked about.
Yeah. So with regard to these dead soldiers, Trump did the indefensible, the unconscionable.
Oh, my God.
By exploiting them for political purposes. This is a quote. He said, all of them said very strongly, we can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. Really? They all said that.
You don't believe him?
They all said that. How would he know that? Like, did he interview them before they died? Like, it's such bullshit. But just think about what he did. And then when you combine that with his postings where he compares the 18 soldiers who have died in the Iran war versus the many more who died in Vietnam, Korea, Iraq, Afghanistan. Like, first of all, it's not a fucking contest. One dead soldier is one dead soldier too many, right? To anyone normal, okay? Yeah. Especially the commander-in-chief. But way to show your incompetence by comparing this war to the Vietnam War. Really? You want to go there? Afghanistan? Iraq? That's what you want to compare it to? Vietnam? I want to mention these soldiers who just died because it's important to remember who they are because they're people. They're human beings. They're not soldiers. They're not boots on the ground. They're humans. And they're young. Private Isabella Gonzalez, 19 years old, from Texas, 19, gave her life for this unjust war and to a Secretary of Defense who on a daily basis disrespects and degrades women in the military. Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan, 25, of Hawaii. Sergeant Angel Rampersad, 28, of New York, Ozone Park, Queens. Sergeant Michael Emmanuel Swinton, 30, of North Carolina. These are brave, courageous, patriotic Americans who signed up to defend and protect American democracy and have been used and abused and exploited and killed in a war of Trump's ego. A war he called the other day a skirmish at his rally. A skirmish. That's what I called it, a skirmish. And then at the same time, he's telling America, we can't let Iran have a nuclear deal. What does he do? He goes and cuts a fucking deal with Saudi Arabia. 25 years after 9/11, the United States cuts a deal with Saudi Arabia, which could potentially lead them to a nuclear weapon in the Middle East. Why? Because they line his fucking pockets.
Well, and his son-in-law.
And Jared Kushner, right? And Don Jr.
Well, that-
and Eric and God knows who else. I mean, just think about that. We're fighting a fucking war over nukes. And we're cutting a deal that could allow Saudi Arabia to have nukes.
But in Trumpian deal making, which is, I don't even know what you call it, it's already fallen apart because he then suddenly put another condition on.
Yeah, they must join the Abraham.
I was like, oh, I forgot to put that in the contract.
I have 3 grandchildren under 7. And when they say something to me on Monday, I'm like, yeah, it's going to change on Tuesday. But they're not the president of the United States. And to your point, like, nothing this dude says on a Monday is the truth or reality 24 hours later. Sometimes not even.
It doesn't take that long.
Yeah,
Always.
sometimes the same day. By night, it changes. Oil, back up over $100 a barrel. It was in the low 70s a couple of weeks ago. And God knows where it can go at this point.
But I was expecting it to be 200 apparently.
Sure, 300. 600% more.
It's a bargain.
Maddie, if it goes from 100 to 200, would that be a 10,000% increase in Trump,
in that
Trump
range?
math?
In that range.
Yeah. But yet, it still doesn't stop him from saying they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal. They want to make a deal. How many times since February 28th, when this war started, how many times have we heard Trump say, they're desperate, they want to make a deal? It doesn't look to me like Iran wants to make a deal. In fact, they're literally saying, we don't want to make a deal.
It's insane, but I'm not trying to defend Iran, but who would want to make a deal, quote unquote, with Donald Trump? I mean, his ability to lie about any deal he's ever kept. He's never paid his bills.
Sure.
He's never, so I mean, why would they want to make a deal with him?
Yeah, I'm no fan of Iran, and I see them as an arch enemy of our country. I see them as a state sponsor of terrorism, and I think the regime needs to change, and lot needs to happen there, and the people need to be liberated and all that. But you're right. Even the worst of the worst in this planet, why the fuck would they do a deal with Donald Trump?
I mean, they're 10 times smarter, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and they got the strait closed, and they're winning.
Right, they're totally winning.
I mean, if Hegseth doesn't like it, then change the facts on the ground. Then win. Don't just say you won. Don't just say it's over. Don't just say you've obliterated their military. Do it. And then leave, because I guess when you win and it's over and the military is obliterated, you can leave, right? You can leave. It's that simple. You don't escalate something that's over. You don't escalate something that's already been won. You don't escalate something and fight harder and threaten more devastating, potentially war crime type of warfare against a country that has no military, right? Am I just being too commonsensical, Manny?
Well, I mean, the problem for them is that if you read any military historian or you just use common sense, there has never been a war like this won from air power alone. It's impossible. You need to put boots on. I'm not suggesting they should put boots on the ground, but to win a war like this, you need boots on the ground. And the estimates of the number of troops, I'm putting aside that what I'm saying is insane and we shouldn't do it, the estimates by generals who have said how you would win such a war, you would need 600,000 troops.
But he doesn't listen to the generals.
Well, I mean, thank God he doesn't listen to that right now. We don't need 600,000.
When Dan Kane said, yeah, you could risk the strait getting closed.
Yeah.
Right? But here's the thing about Trump that I find really fascinating. When the Iraq War started, President George W. Bush, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, Vice President Dick Cheney, what did they say? It's going to be shock and awe. It's going to be over quick. We're going to be greeted as liberators. And then the first hill they took, they put up the banner on the warship. Mission accomplished. Remember all that? And then smart people were like, damn, an administration will never make that fucking mistake again. And he and they are doing the exact same thing. I'm not exaggerating. For the last 4 months, they have espoused the same exact unbelievably false and arrogant rhetoric.
Yes, and everyone involved in that administration was at least 10 times smarter than everyone in this administration.
Yes, and how long did that war last, Matty?
I lost track of the years.
But I don't think he's going to put soldiers.
No, I don't think so either, which means that he's
going to cut and run. That's my bet. If this was Vegas, my money's on cutting and running, regardless of the shit pile he leaves behind. Because that's what Donald Trump does, and he'll blame everybody else. At the same time, he lies and gaslights. The man lies through his teeth. He lies as he breathes. So that's what we need to expect. We need to expect he's going to cut and run to save his own face and then spin it like it was the greatest military victory in the history of this country.
Yeah, well, I think he'd like to do that, but I think he's stuck. And he's stuck because people are going to tell him, if you leave, gas is going to be $6, $7 a gallon. Diesel will be $11 a gallon. And Iran will reconstitute its nuclear program sooner than later. And that's not going to be acceptable to him because it will be all over Fox News and New York Post and everywhere else will be just hammering away that his arrangement is worse than what Obama left with his deal. And that will make his head explode.
So let's get to our winners and losers.
My winner is Troy Jackson. He is on track to become the official Democratic Senate nominee on Saturday's convention, and a pretty smooth process to replace Graham Plattner, considering. My loser is Pete Hegseth, who is clearly the worst Secretary of Defense in U.S. history, and he's running what many people believe to be the dumbest war we've ever waged.
My loser, Representative Jim Jordan, who's made a criminal referral to the DOJ of former Special Prosecutor Jack Smith for allegedly lying to Congress. This witch hunt will die a quick death. My winner, the New York Times reporters who were subpoenaed by Trump and the DOJ over their reporting of the Qatari jet plane security fiasco during the recent NATO summit, and who had those subpoenas withdrawn yesterday by the government after the judge in the case threatened to toss them if the government doesn't. And that gets us to the weekly rant. When New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani first took office, I made a point of saying he deserved the opportunity to lead and to be judged by his actions, not by campaign rhetoric or partisan assumptions. Despite the serious concerns that I shared with many fellow Jews, I wanted to take seriously his promise to make New York's Jewish community feel safe and to unite New Yorkers. I genuinely hoped he would govern in a way that brought people together rather than deepen existing divisions. Unfortunately, after watching the video address he released Tuesday about his prior threat to arrest Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu relating to the outstanding ICC warrant if he came to New York City, I'm more concerned than ever that his words and actions are moving us in the opposite direction. At a time when anti-Semitism is already at alarming levels in New York and across the country and throughout the world, I believe leaders have an obligation to be especially careful with their language. Instead, I fear Mamdani's approach, which is clearly rooted now in his own very deep personal animus towards Netanyahu and Israel itself, is exacerbating the very problem he should be working to confront. What struck me most about Mamdani's video wasn't just what he chose to say. It was everything he chose not to say. If you're going to make a sweeping moral indictment about the Middle East, you can't simply erase the event that ignited the current war, which is Hamas's barbaric October 7th terrorist attack, the deadliest single day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Not once did he acknowledge the massacre, the kidnappings, the rapes, the mutilations, the torture, the beheadings, or the fact that innocent civilians were deliberately targeted by a terrorist organization. He didn't even utter the word Hamas. Equally glaring was the absence of any recognition of the centuries of anti-Semitism that shaped the fears and perspective of so many Jews today, from expulsions and pogroms to the Holocaust and the relentless persecution, violence, and genocide that has followed Jews across generations. Whether intentional or not, those omissions stripped away the historical context necessary to understand why so many Jews viewed the message not as a call for justice, but as an exercise in selective empathy. And that's where I believe the hypocrisy of Mamdani's address becomes impossible to ignore. He presented his remarks as a universal moral appeal, yet the only nation singled out for sustained condemnation was Israel. There was no comparable denunciation of Hamas, no discussion of Iran's sponsorship of terrorism or their mass slaughter of its citizens, no mention of China's persecution of the Uyghurs, or the Assad regime's atrocities in Syria, or the Taliban's oppression of women, or Russia's attacks on Ukrainian civilians, or the countless other governments and organizations responsible for horrific human rights abuses, or even our own president's government, which has murdered U.S. citizens simply for protesting. If your standard is supposed to be universal human rights, then your outrage should be universal too. Instead, the speech focused exclusively on the world's only Jewish state, while omitting the context of October 7th, the role of Hamas, and the long history of anti-Semitism that informs Jewish fears. And then, just yesterday, 2 days after Mamdani's video, New York witnessed violent attacks in Manhattan that police are investigating as possible hate crimes, including the stabbing of a visibly Jewish man after the suspect allegedly shouted, "Allahu Akbar." To be clear, I am not suggesting that Mamdani's speech caused those attacks, and there is no evidence establishing such a connection. But I do believe the timing should give all of us pause. Public officials help shape the public conversation, and when they address one of the world's most emotionally charged conflicts while omitting the terrorism, anti-Semitism, and historical trauma that define the Jewish experience, they risk reinforcing a one-sided narrative at a moment when Jewish New Yorkers already feel increasingly vulnerable. That's why I'm no longer reassured by his campaign olive branches to the Jewish community and Jewish leaders and his promises of unity. I want to see leadership from Mayor Mamdani that applies the same moral standard to everyone, acknowledges the suffering of all innocent people, and speaks with the clarity and balance necessary to confront, not inadvertently deepen, the scourge of anti-Semitism. Lastly, there are those who claim that criticizing Israel and Zionism is not a condemnation of Jews or anti-Semitism. In theory, maybe. But in the real world, that distinction often disappears. For many people, Zionist, Israel, and Jew are virtually interchangeable terms. So when public figures like Mamdani repeatedly demonize Zionists, they must understand that for many people, that translates to Jews. That's not an argument against criticizing Netanyahu or Israeli policy. Every government should be open to criticism, just as I criticize Trump and his government. Instead, it's an argument for recognizing that words have consequences, sometimes violent, deadly ones, especially at a time when anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic hate crimes are already on the rise. Mayor Mamdani must do better and be part of the solution, not the problem. All right, let's get to S.E. Cupp. She is a nationally syndicated columnist, author, podcaster, and TV commentator. She hosts Off the Cupp, a podcast which focuses on mental health and which features interviews with celebrities and newsmakers. She is a columnist at the New York Daily News and has also been published in the New York Times, Vanity Fair, Rolling Stone, Washington Post, and many other publications. She is currently a political commentator at CNN. She regularly interviews authors for C-SPAN's BookTV and is a regular guest on The View, Real Time with Bill Maher, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Watch What Happens Live, and others. S.E. has also consulted on Aaron Sorkin's The Newsroom and Apple TV's The Morning Show, and has made cameos on House of Cards and Saturday Night Live. As an author, S.E. has written 2 books, Losing Our Religion, The Liberal Media's Attack on Christianity, and co-authored Why You're Wrong About the Right. She's on the advisory board of Cornell University's Institute of Politics and Global Affairs and Inara.org, and is a No Kid Hungry ambassador. S.E., welcome back into the back room.
It's good to be back in the back room. Sorry, I'm still laughing from the thing you just said all that.
Yeah, we had a little private joke before we started taping.
We had a chuckle. Okay, yeah. I'm ready. I'm serious.
So before we start about politics, I want to just tell you that I have been on a cappuccino tear. As you know, I had sworn off coffee for like 30 years, drinking tea. And then one day,
amazing.
I walked past a coffee place and I was like, oh my God, tea doesn't ever smell like that. I need this in my life again. And I was scared to try it because my body has not had coffee. And then so I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And before I even took a sip, I was like, oh my God, that smells amazing. And I took a sip
babe.
and I was like on the crack pipe.
Welcome back, babe. I'm so happy for you.
Cheers.
And yeah, the smell will get you. It's the smell, because coffee is people overlook this because they're often so focused on like the stimulant side of coffee, but coffee is one of the best flavors and aromas the world has ever known.
Yes.
Ever. It is a perfect aroma and flavor. That's why it works so well in ice cream and dessert. Like, it's just perfect. And
tea doesn't do it.
I feel bad. Yeah, I feel bad for people who don't get to experience that. I understand why, but
I'm if I have a tea, I still drink tea. I'll drink an iced tea, but I'll get like angry at the tea
for not living up.
I'm
to,
like,
why
are you
offering me here?
Why are you so inferior? Why don't you smell like coffee? Why don't you taste like coffee? Why don't you give me that same satisfaction? It's like being in a bad relationship, you know?
Yes, and you start to wonder, is it better to not be in a relationship at all?
Yes.
Or to be in this relationship that's not giving me the life I need?
But then they're like, you have a tea, but I want a cappuccino.
Of course. I'll never understand, because, you know, I have this podcast where we ask about people's coffee preferences.
Yes.
In fact, we have a coffee podcast. I'll never understand. Sometimes I'll ask, you know, do you drink coffee? No, I drink tea. That is unrelated. What does that have to do with? Great, I also drink Diet Pepsi and occasionally juice. This has nothing to do with coffee. It's nothing like coffee. It doesn't smell as good. It doesn't taste as good. It doesn't do the same things for you. It is a separate category, and yet it is constantly lumped in to the coffee category.
Yeah. Well,
So
I like
the same tea.
It's just so unexciting to me now, and I liken it to food. Like, I have to eat, but if I eat tofu, I am not like, oh my God, that tofu was incredible. Baby back ribs is like incredible.
Right.
And that's
now
coffee.
You're talking.
That's coffee and cappuccino for me now. So I'm back.
Yes, I think it's the same thing. People who treat food like fuel, right? I eat for fuel.
Right.
These are the people that treat coffee like it's just caffeine. No. I want the whole experience. I want the aroma. I want the ritual of making it or going out to buy it. I want to sip it over a long day. I want to keep tasting it.
Yes.
I love all the things.
Yeah, I get a cappuccino and like in 5 minutes, I'm like, are you gone already? Where did you go so fast?
I know.
I wanted to sip you for like an hour.
Really happy for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't nurse. I
you.
can't nurse a cappuccino. I'm seriously like, I'm on that pipe. It just like, it just goes so
That's
quick.
why I drink it iced, because I just want to like shoot it in.
Yeah.
Get all the way in. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad we bonded. We bond on so many other things. Now we bond on coffee. So I'm back.
Good.
All right. So let's start with another addiction that a good chunk of this country still has, Donald Trump and Trumpism. What do you make of where he's at lately? I just saw something this morning, like his approval is at 34%. I think he's imploding. Where are you on that?
No, I agree. I think the thing that's become the most clear over this year, from January to now, is he doesn't give a shit about elections at all. Could not care any less than he does. Impossible. Because no one who even had like a cursory worry about the fact that it's an election year, your party's right. You could lose majority. You could lose control of Congress. You've still got 2 years left. Anyone with like a modicum of concern about it would not be behaving the way he's behaving, wouldn't be doing what he's doing, saying what he's saying. And I talked to Republicans on the Hill, and they are so frustrated because obviously they care a lot, and there's only so much they can do when Donald Trump has blotted out the sun and, is taking up all the oxygen. They want to be talking about the housing bill, the bipartisan housing bill they just signed and passed. They want to be talking about, affordability and stuff they still want to do in the next 10 years, 2 years of Trump's term. Instead, they're having to defend a war that no one wanted, defend tariffs that are deeply unpopular and wrecking the economy, defend vanity projects like a reflecting pool in a ballroom and the money, defending corruption and self-dealing and crypto corruption and all that shit. That's what they have to talk about. I can sense their frustration and they have nowhere to go. There's no convincing Trump to start caring about the election. So that's what I'm seeing. Right.
Well, let me push you on that a little.
Yeah.
Like when you say they care, but there's nothing they can do. What if John Thune and Mike Johnson gave a press conference and said, folks, we can no longer support Donald Trump, his rhetoric, his actions. We cannot support this war. We will not support this war. We can't support his attacks and delusions about affordability and it being a hoax.
And the election.
We can't.
Right.
If they just did that and they said, now he has veto power. There's certain things we may not be able to control, but we are now going to be fighting him and his agenda as hard as we can with whatever power we have. Not mention elections or just switch, just pivot and show some of the Republicans or independents or both out there that, okay, maybe I should stick with these guys in November. Why can't they do that? They believe it. Based on what you said, they know it. They know exactly who he is, what he is, how dangerous he is, how awful his policies are. They just have no balls.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, what I heard from John Thune this week, and I've known John Thune a long time, he is like the nicest. He's a nice guy, okay? When he said to a reporter this week, he was asked about Caroline Leavitt, who said that Trump was frustrated, losing patience for the Republican Congress that hasn't passed the SAVE Act. And John Thune said to this reporter, well, she or someone in that office should pick up the phone then. Right. That was John Thune yelling, okay? Right. That was him screaming. Right. He said it in this mild-mannered way, but I've never heard him talk like that. First of all, I didn't know he was he's used sarcasm. I didn't know he knew that language. In that, he's like, we're at 50 around here, meaning, if 50 people support it, you need a couple more. Pick up the phone. He's saying, stop pointing your fingers at us and tell the president to do his job. Call the Republican holdouts. Tell them what they don't get about this bill or why they need to pass it or whatever.
Well, it's so true because the irony there is that if he made those calls, not only would he be calling people like Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, good luck with that. He'd be calling a couple of people who he had primaried or
fired.
Good luck with that, right?
Good luck with that. No, that's why he's not. But John Thune's frustration indicates to me he is losing patience. Mike Johnson, I think, is completely in the tank and has absolutely no temerity, courage. But yeah, they can't quit him. There's 2 years left. They still want to, tie themselves to him, I guess. But he doesn't care about them. He doesn't care about them at all. And the crazy thing is he is willing to let Republicans spend more money than they need to run asshole candidates like Ken Paxton, right? If they had just gone with Cornyn, they wouldn't have had to spend any money on this because they probably wouldn't have gotten an opponent, right? But they run people like Ken Paxton. They're going to have to outspend. Meanwhile, Trump is sitting on a war chest that is 100 million more than what Democrats have. He's not going to spend it. He doesn't care about these elections, so he doesn't want to spend it.
No,
so Republicans,
he's going to take that with him on the Qatari plane when he leaves.
He's going to take it down the river Styx, right? I mean, he's going to take it to his grave. But Republicans are like, we outraised Democrats to the tune of $100 million. When can we have some of it? And so far, he is not spending. I mean, it's remarkable how much he shits on them on a daily basis and humiliates them. It's amazing.
They're watching him destroy their livelihoods, their careers, their legacies, their reputations, the party.
Right.
I don't know. I just don't get it. Why they keep allowing him to do that.
There's almost, an abuser type relationship, and they can't see their way out of it. To a certain extent, they are right that they need him in certain respects, right? Getting his endorsement, his support. There are voters back home that support him. I get that. They're not wrong on that. But to your point, if enough of them said, he does not care about us, it is up to us to save ourselves, he's on his way out, well, that would be interesting. I don't think we're going to see that.
Well, it used to be believed that they were all afraid of not so much him, but the base.
His voters, yeah.
But we know now that there's a good chunk of his base that may not necessarily be abandoning him yet. Mm-hmm. But there are those that have abandoned him. But I would think a majority of them are upset about the war, are upset about affordability, the economy, the lack of Epstein prosecutions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the base seems more primed than ever to listen to logic and righteous indignation coming out of John Thune and Mike Johnson. I don't think they should fear the base the same way they used to, especially 3 months from an election when the base or moderate Republicans and independents have shown that they're not voting for Republicans. So I just don't get it. I really don't get it.
I think you're right that the base is more vulnerable than it has been. But I also think if you're looking at, take that primary we were just talking about in Texas, where John Cornyn was leading. No one had endorsed. Trump hadn't endorsed yet, right? And it looked like John Cornyn was going to take it. Donald Trump endorsed Ken Paxton with like a week left, and Ken Paxton wins the primary. This like fatally flawed, disgusting human being with all this baggage, with all the money they're going to have to spend. But Donald Trump gave the word, and voters lined up for Ken Paxton. Now, will that translate to the general? That remains to be seen. But like, I think there still is a sense inside the party that he still commands the base, and he can still give the base their marching orders. You know, how true that is outside of a place like Texas or, we'll see. But I think as upset as the base is at a bunch of things, and they are, there's still enough of a loyalty to scare a bunch of Republicans.
Yeah. But we're also getting near the end of primary season. And so the fear of being primaried will be over. At least the fear of being primaried. Whether they have other fears, having their home addresses be put on the internet, whatever. That's another kind of fear. And we know he's done that with people. But I don't know. It's like, it's now or never. Like, dudes,
it would seem that way.
You're going to get trounced in November if this continues. We know that he's not going to change. There's no pivot coming. There's no strategic shift. Like, oh my God, I'm destroying my party's chances of winning. To your point, he doesn't care about anyone but himself. But he certainly doesn't care about the party. But I have this theory, and it's very rooted in kind of the psychology of Trump, which can get you crazy if you spend too much time on it, but it also helps you at the same time because you get to understand him, right? Why does, the people on your network and MS Now and others are like, why did Trump do this today? We did it because he's a sociopath, right? So if you don't understand his psychology, his pathology.
And you're good at it. You're a good Trump psychologizer.
I am. I'm like a Trump whisperer.
You are, yeah.
But I think, and hear me out on this, because of who he is, his victimhood, woe is me, there always needs to be an enemy that unites him and his base, us versus them, a common enemy. I think he wants to lose Congress because then for the next 2 years, putting aside his rhetoric about him being impeached and all that, well, how'd that work out the first 2 times?
Great for him.
How did it work out when he was actually indicted? Right? How'd that work out?
Great for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think he really cares about that. I think right now he actually thinks he's invincible, which he pretty much is. I think having a Democrat House and Senate just pours like gas on that fire for him.
Yes.
That, because it excuses his failures for the next 2 years. And it gives him,
Right.
we know he's not going to work. This guy doesn't sit up at night like Bill Clinton until 3 a.m, like obsessing about policy. He just obsesses about himself and his bullshit and the shit posting. Yeah. What better framework or landscape could there be for Donald Trump if he has to go against a Democrat-controlled Congress every single day for the next 2 years? So
I think you're 100% right. And let me add something to this. I think you're right. He almost welcomes a Democrat takeover for all those reasons. He's got a new enemy. He has gotten almost nothing done in these 2 years. Nothing good anyway. He's done a ton of executive stuff. He's done a ton of stuff that was deeply unpopular. He doesn't have to do anything if Democrats are standing in his way and then he gets to be persecuted with the investigation. No, I think you're totally right. I'm not even sure he wants the SAVE Act to pass in reality, because I think if it doesn't and Democrats win big in November, he can say, see, told you it's rigged. If we had just passed the SAVE Act, we would have had free and fair elections. If he passes it before the election and Democrats win big, what can he say? He passed the legislation.
You're quite the little Trump whisperer yourself.
Listen, I get paid to think about this
stuff. That was
stuff,
some good Trumpy stuff right there.
I think we're both right that the conventional wisdom, he should want his party to remain in power because he can get more done. None of this applies to him.
None of it.
Because he wants to be a victim. He doesn't actually want to be in control. He wants to be in victim mode. That makes him feel good. And he wants to be able to blame. And if he actually gets stuff done, if he actually passes the legislation that protects our elections and he loses and Republicans lose, he can't do anything. So I think you're absolutely right. And people are kind of looking at this through the wrong lens.
Right. I have this conversation with people all the time. I say, stop thinking about this stuff with your brain. Think about it with Trump's brain. Because everything he does, everything he says, every move he makes, every breath he takes, is because he's a sociopath who cares about nothing or no one. He couldn't even go to his own son's wedding, right?
Right.
He cares about nobody. And that's the other thing, too. It's like these people, these weak, feckless cowards who pledge this undying fealty to him, when they know they will get not even a shred of that loyalty in return, that he will throw.
They'll get worse than nothing. They'll get shit on.
Right. I mean, look at, count the people. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Kayleigh McEnany. How many people have literally prostrated themselves for this man?
Cassidy.
Yeah.
Bill Cassidy is the deciding vote for Bobby Kennedy, right? The deciding vote. He's a doctor. He took off his doctor hat and apparently took his brain out for a minute and voted for RFK Jr. for HHS. How does he get rewarded for that?
Gets primaried.
Right. I don't know why he thought this will buy me something. It doesn't even buy you reciprocal loyalty. It will get you disloyalty, in fact. It's insane. I don't understand why anyone...
Somebody, maybe it was you, once said to me, they think they're the ones that it's going to be different with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's really?
No.
Have you not watched everything he's done for 10 years? Name somebody except Stephen Miller, who's really still with him, that he is
for now
really loyal to. And he's not even loyal to Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is his useful little neo-Nazi.
For now.
So there's so much other crap that's going on. What keeps S.E. Cupp at night? What makes you scream? What makes you so frustrated? What are the things you're watching?
I mean, a lot. The war in Iran, I don't even want to get too deep into it because it's truly scary to think where this thing could go. And we knew this before we got in, which is why so many people were like, don't do this. This is a terrible idea.
But don't you love when he says, no other president did what I did? Exactly, because they knew this was a disaster if they did it.
Yeah, we've not even seen close to the worst of this. And so, I mean, I don't want to freak people out, but this is going to get much worse and it's going to be really ugly. And it's going to go a lot longer than anyone wants it to.
What do you think of the odds, though, are of him just saying, fuck it, I'm out of here, and not caring what he leaves behind? Because, again, let's get back into Donald Trump's head. There's reality, and then there's what Donald Trump wants you to believe. And to a certain segment of our population, they will believe whatever he tells them, like communists are blowing up Mount Rushmore, right?
Sure.
In normal times, that you'd be like, let's get the doctors in now to take care of grandpa. Now it's like a legit thing that people comment on. Oh, he said this today. But in his mind, in his warped mind, and because he's a pathological liar and the king of gaslighting, he'll just go to his people and go, hey, don't worry about the Strait of Hormuz, or the Hormuz Strait, or Hormuz Street, as he called it the other day. Because we don't need it. We don't use it. It's everybody else that uses it, and they're not paying for it. So if they want it open, let them pay for it. Like, you can hear the narrative. And a good chunk of people be like, yeah, America first. It'll be an America first move. I mean, just think of that.
Yeah.
We're pulling out because of America first. And a good chunk of people will just mimic that. Yeah, America first. That's the crazy times we're living in right now. So I think that's more likely than anything, that he just gets more frustrated, more angry. It's just, not that he cares about the midterms or anything, or Republicans. He just doesn't like the press he's getting.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. That will be his impulse, and he may try to just say, I'm out. The problem is there's another actor here. It's Iran. They get a say.
That's right.
They get a say, and they're patient. They are hoping that election pressures make him want to do that, make him want to say, I'm done. I've had enough. They get to keep doing stuff, though. And what happens if they go and attack Israel? We do nothing then? What if they go and attack, as they have been, our other allies in the Gulf region, Kuwait? What do? Nothing? There are some things we would have to respond to. There's so many factors in here that it's not just as easy as us saying, okay, just kidding, psych, we're done, we're out. You guys can have this.
Don't you think both of those things can happen at the same time? Because you're right. There's another player here. I mean, we just saw other soldiers get killed. They weren't killed in Iran, right?
Right.
Iran could do damage all over the world.
Yes.
Against the United States.
And wouldn't they be incentivized to, having watched his total lack of courage?
Yes.
Throughout this whole thing, the threats, and then he retreats. Threat, retreat. But wouldn't they be emboldened?
Absolutely. And that's why I say two things can happen at the same time. They could do that and continue the attacks on the United States and others, our allies.
Yes.
But he could also at the same time do his gaslighting propaganda thing, which he does all the time anyway. How many times has he said in the last 4.5 months that Iran wants a deal? How many times has he said the war
or that we've won.
is over? We've won.
Yeah.
We've obliterated their military. Not once, but twice. Now, this is when I try to get people to, like, on the other side to be logical. I say, okay, we are escalating this thing, whatever you want to call it. Why? Isn't it over? Didn't we win? Right. What are they fighting with if they don't have a military?
Right.
Why does he need a deal so badly? If it's if there's nothing left over there, like
if we crushed it,
none of it makes any sense. But
no, it
still doesn't stop him from lying. So I think he will lie and pretend and create his own narrative. At the same time, the very dangerous scenarios that you're talking about will exist.
He will, but there will be some realities he can't, run away from. And, whether his base believes it or not, I think you and I both agree that they will believe whatever he says. But this will have real world implications, not just economic, but we could have more casualties and injuries and, hurting our relationships with our allies and other partners. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could still happen here that someone would have to contend with, right? Like our military would have to contend with that kind of stuff. Our State Department would have to contend with that kind of stuff. Our diplomats. I mean, he can't just exit cleanly. So it's called a quagmire for a reason.
Yeah. Well,
we're in it.
It's a shitstorm now, and to your point, under any scenario, it's going to continue to be even more of a shitstorm. That's the real scary part.
The best case is we pull out, things are worse than we found them because we just kind of stopped fighting for control of the Strait, or we stopped fighting the Houthis or whatever it is. We leave some, we give up kinetic, we leave some offshore carriers just for a presence.
Right.
Iran keeps enriching uranium because we've given up on that ambition. They can retrieve their buried enriched uranium. I mean, that's the best case.
Right.
At this point, I don't think anyone serious believes we're actually going to put an end to their nuclear deal, retrieve the nuclear materials, do regime change, liberate the Iranian people, and keep the Strait of Hormuz opened indefinitely. No one believes that this administration is capable of negotiating that deal. So what are we left with? Something worse?
Wait, you mean to tell me that the prodigal son-in-law and the real estate pal,
they didn't figure this out?
They are not capable of negotiating an end to a war?
Sure, they got some good real estate deals out of this, but
doesn't that just make you so irate?
Sick.
That someone like Jared Kushner, who wouldn't be anywhere near Washington, D.C., let alone the White House, or negotiate unless his wife's daddy was president.
Right.
That's vomitous to me.
Yes.
And then
we're not
carry that over to
best.
Hegseth as the Secretary of Defense, and then President Donald Trump. This is who's prosecuting this war. This is who's negotiating supposedly.
A very complex, complicated quagmire of a war.
It's terrifying. But I am encouraged sometimes. You mentioned the military. When you watch those, sometimes when Kane and Hegseth, they're either at a presser or an update, which they haven't given a briefing since April, but when they were on Capitol Hill last week, you get the feeling, at least I do, that Kane isn't fully on board with any of this nonsense.
Right.
And we know from the Nixon years that the military then were like, hey, this dude's a drunk. So if he tries to push any buttons, let's all get on the phone, okay? We also know from Mark Milley that during Trump 1.0 that they were like, guys, we're not going to let him do crazy shit. So I like to believe that behind the scenes, the military, the smart generals, we're not letting this guy do really bad shit. They're not going to commit war crimes for him.
They're certainly not going to do it for Pete Hegseth.
And they're certainly not going to do it. For Pete Hegseth. But you're right. This is a quagmire. It's almost we're going to be going on 6 months soon. At the end of August will be 6 months. And there's a point to where either it has to go on for a very long time, as you say, and get worse. Or he's just got to irrationally, recklessly pull out. There's no in between.
Or do what he's threatened to do, which is bomb the shit out of them. That is an option, I think, that he is considering.
You mean like the war crimes, the bridges, the civilian infrastructure, all that?
The war crimes, correct. The war crimes.
I don't think he's too much of a coward. This is why he keeps making these idle threats.
Yes, I worry that he gets pushed.
By who?
Into that. By the Ben Shapiro wing of the party that is and the Netanyahu wing of the base, that is like, finish them. If you're going to do this, finish them. Right. They're an existential threat to America. They're an existential threat to Israel. They're an existential threat in the region. Hamas, Hezbollah, Lebanon, this is all. Finish them. He is getting that pressure. And he was obviously ignoring the Tucker Carlsons in his ear saying, don't do this. Do not get into this war. It's a terrible idea. He ignored them, right? So I do worry that there's a wing of his base that will goad him into going further than is wise. And listen, I want to win this war. I want America to win this war. I want America to get stuff out of it that makes America safer and the region safer and our allies safer and Israel safer. I want that. I'm not optimistic we can get there, but that's what I want. And I'm just not sure he isn't actually considering those kinds of things, which would, again, prolong this, make it worse.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
would think he's considering everything because he's a madman. Because he has no rational thinking, critical thinking. Nothing he does or says is tied to an actual strategy or a policy. It's all in service to his diseased id, his ego.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I hear myself say this, I then stop and I go, how is it that he's president of the United States? He doesn't.
Twice.
Twice.
I know.
Twice.
I know.
Yes. But it's like.
Twice is the kicker. The first time you can forgive the curiosity,
Sure.
you can forgive like fuckery, like let's fuck around and find out for a minute. You can forgive that. Twice is the punch in the fucking gut that I cannot reconcile this in my mind.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Half the country went there. It's crazy.
But you have to at the same, and I'm not saying you have to, because I know you do. While we're judging the people who voted for him, and they deserve our judgment, we also have to look at what their alternative was and whether that was good enough. And it wasn't.
Clearly.
Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
And we have to do two things at once. We have to say, what is wrong with the MAGA base?
Yeah.
And they are, clearly cultified, but also what is wrong with the alternative party that they could not figure out how to.
Yeah. And what is
win
wrong with
again.
the alternative base? Whatever happened to Rovember? Remember that?
Yeah.
What happened? We had less votes this time around than the first.
Right.
I don't know what it is. How people can either be apathetic, the apathy and the indifference and the delusion, or just like, it's okay, we'll be fine. I don't know. I just don't understand why we don't have like 75% turnout when we're threatened by this kind of stuff.
Let me I have a long think piece coming out soon that I spent a considerable amount of time writing. Do you remember a group in the early 2000s called the Club for Growth?
Yes.
Right. It was a pro-growth, anti-tax, limited government group. It was founded by Stephen Moore, who you may know.
Right.
Okay. And this young fiscal conservative was enamored of this, right? Oh my God, there's a club for me. My friends were going to Marquee and Bungalow 8. I wanted to go to the Club for Growth, right? But what they started doing was rhino hunting. Okay, we all familiar with the term rhino now, but this is the group that started rhino hunting in the early 2000s and picking off their own Republicans who weren't fiscally conservative enough. So, they went after Arlen Specter and Olympia Snow, and to varying degrees of success. But anyway, they became a giant fundraising arm for Republicans, and they started primarying their own Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
This project was very bad for the party, ultimately. It weakened the party. It telegraphed to the Democrats, we are vulnerable. We're not all united. By the time McCain gets nominated, one of the greatest, most decent, honorable men you could nominate, the Republican Party is so fractured, he is not conservative enough for most Republicans. Mitt Romney, same thing. Republican voter turnout dips by millions in 2008 and 2012. It's not because they're voting for Obama. It's because they're staying home.
Right.
Mitt Romney's not sufficiently conservative. Why? Because of universal health care in Massachusetts. John McCain's not sufficiently conservative. Why? Because he went against his party on a couple of votes. That's what we did to ourselves. I am watching Democrats do this to themselves now. The purity testing on Israel, the purging, the primarying, this battle between progressives and moderates, to a certain extent is healthy. And listen, are progressives getting where a lot of voters are more than the establishment is? Yes, clearly. However, the 3 Ps, purity, purging, primaries, will weaken the party and it will make policies and priorities less important than personalities. That's also what happens. And it will open the door, as it did with us, for someone like Trump to come in and destroy the whole thing. When you are that weak and you don't know what you stand for, and you're so focused on purging your own party of its people. Someone like Trump came in and said, I'm going to destroy it for you. Watch me. Help me destroy it for you. So I have a caution. It's a cautionary tale. This is why, because this party is not united. It's not turning out in the numbers it needs to. It is losing parts of its coalition that it counts on because of this internal infighting where people like Hassan Piker are sitting candidates down and saying, what do you think about Israel? And doing this purity test where if you don't answer correctly, you're not good enough. You are insufficiently liberal. Beware. Beware the urge to purge because it broke my party. And I think it's bad for the country.
Yeah, I agree with you in theory. And I share the concern because I know my party has a habit of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And I fear that may happen this November while we're all euphoric over the tsunami that's coming. But let me present a counter narrative. There's all this obvious talk about progressive Democrats, socialists, and now it's like communism. That's the thing from Trump on down. But the truth is, most of these candidates that have won, and there are varying degrees of quote unquote
it's a spectrum.
There's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum.
Sure. Not everyone wants
James
to like
Tallarico progressive, and then like Chevalier progressive.
Not everybody wants to like tear down democracy and cops
prisons.
and prisons and all that. Yes. But a lot of it is centered like in really safe democratic areas, like New York City. Okay, there's few people, especially in the media, harping on Kay Connolly in New York 17, Ben McAdams in Utah 1, Nancy LaCour in South Carolina 1. Moderates, we had Abigail Spanberger last fall and Mikey Sherrill. A lot of these Democrats that are winning are moderates, and they are combat vets and former intelligence officials, and that's what the bulk of the party is moving towards. So when you take that and you combine that, virtually every election since the fall of 24, special elections, et cetera, have been won by Democrats. You look at Trump's popularity. You look at polls that are out now that show that Democrats have like an 11-point lead over Republicans heading into the midterms. I think the Democrats got their shit together. I think their messaging is right. And the most important thing, even with this move towards progressivism, and one could argue that because the pendulum has swung so far to the right, it has to swing far to the left before it settles somewhere in a normal place in the middle. It's one day where people like you feel like your party is back for you, and people like me feel like, okay, I have a effective Democratic Party. But what are these people talking about? They're really not talking about trans bathroom stuff. They're talking about affordability. They're talking about universal health care, universal pre-K. They're talking about gas and grocery prices and inflation. They're talking about this stuff that when the electorate is hearing it, it's not like smacking them in the face like progressive socialism. It's the stuff that they're dealing with on their kitchen table every single day. And so I think even within that wing, most of it is resonating because it's not crazy talk. It's the actual stuff that matters. In that sense, it's like, the Bernie Sanders stuff. It's come back because that's what America's caring about right now. And they're talking about that shit in a way that mainstream Democrats may not be. And that's where I have a concern. But I do look to the Kay Conleys and McAdams and LaCours and all the others who are winning because I do think they're approaching, when they're at a rally, they're not smacking people over the head with their party. They're just saying, like, we're the same. I go to the grocery store. I can't afford groceries just like you. I'm paying $4 plus at the gas station just like you. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm just like you, and I'm going to fix your problem with you. And so I think the messaging is the right messaging. But I so agree with you that Democrats can't help, just like Republicans can't help themselves. Democrats can't help themselves. They cannot help themselves. And I worry about
agree entirely that messaging that you just talked about is working, and it's the right messaging. And frankly, it's how Zoran Mamdani won, right?
Exactly.
While everyone was trying to paint him as this extremist, he was talking about kitchen table issues.
Exactly.
And that's how he won. Now, does he have some extreme views? Absolutely.
Yep.
And have those, has he tried to like turn to them since getting elected? Yeah. And has he been grooming and picking, candidates that are very, very extreme on a lot of issues to remake the Democratic Party in his image. Yeah. That works obviously in a place like New York, but I worry about people like Dan Goldman, who is suddenly insufficiently liberal, right? Yes. He is a progressive guy. But because of these purity tests now, he was insufficiently liberal. I worry about a place like Michigan, where I used to live. I know Michigan voters pretty well. And Abdul El-Sayed, who's talking about his voters being sad that the Ayatollah was killed. That's insane. That's not affordability. That's not kitchen table issues. That's crazy. And it has the added effect. People like El-Sayed and other progressives, they are fracturing their own coalition. I don't know if you saw this, but Haley Stevens in Michigan, Abdul El-Sayed's opponent, is up 40 plus points with Black Democrats. Because Black voters, Democrats have been bleeding in previous cycles, are not here for the socialism. They don't care as much about Israel. They care about kitchen table issues. So you are fracturing the party with this kind of stuff. And let's not forget to mention, Republicans don't care that Chevalier is in one district in New York City and doesn't represent the whole party. They don't care that Abdul El-Sayed does not represent the whole party. They will pretend that they do. And that will be incredibly compelling to a lot of voters who just hear communism, socialism, sad about the Ayatollah, XYZ, and they will color the whole of the party. All of that is true, whether you know the facts, but that is how that will happen, and that will be bad for the party. So I think you're right about the kinds of Democrats that are winning and the messages that are winning, and they're out there and they have proven successful. But I don't think it's going to matter when you've got some of these folks talking about closing prisons, ending our borders. I mean, totally unserious policy proposals that will beclown the whole of the party. Yeah. That's just kind of the reality of it. And I worry about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I think at the end of the day, the Republicans will dream up rhetoric regardless of what the Democrats do. I mean, Tallarico is a great case in point. They're calling him like a trans woman. There's no
it's insane.
There's no truth to any of that stuff, but it just shows you how desperate they are, and it shows you that they don't need actual real things to happen in order to just make up weird shit. So
it's true.
I'd rather not see the party be fractured. I'd rather not see Democrat on Democrat political violence, but I guess that's just the nature of politics. Last quick question. Mitch McConnell, weekend at Bernie's?
Dead or alive?
What is happening? Where the fuck am I? What's going on?
Yesterday.
Am I dead or alive?
I got a text from someone. Hold on. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it verbatim because this is what
Mitch? Did Mitch text you?
No. This is what it said. I want to get the wording exactly right. Have you guys heard? McConnell is actually going to die today. And I was like, what? How do you know? Person said, just hearing rumors. What does that mean? He's gonna die today.
This was yesterday?
What? Yeah, this was yesterday. I don't know if he did, but this person's in D.C. and somewhat plugged into this Republican, this kind of Republican circle. Did you hear he's gonna die today? Is he on a respirator? Are they gonna unplug it? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
so it's weird. Very bizarre
but that also imply that he's not dead yet.
That does imply that he's not dead yet.
All the dude has to do just make a 30-second FaceTime video. Hey everybody, here I am. I'm sitting in the hospital. I'm fine. I'm alive. Here's a newspaper.
Exactly.
Where is he? Crazy.
No, I know.
Lloyd Austin went to the hospital for 3 days.
I was mad about it.
Yeah, he didn't tell everybody where he went.
Was mad
Republicans
about that.
lost their minds. This guy's missing for 7 weeks now. We haven't seen him.
Yeah, so the New Jersey guy, Tom Kean,
gone
for 100 votes. What the fuck?
Right. Yeah, crazy.
It's the entitlement of the political class. They owe nobody anything. They owe no accountability to anyone. It's crazy.
I just want the I want the old days back where I could just hate
too.
politicians because they're awful people.
If I agreed to be kinder on Obama and you agreed to be kinder on W, could we just go back?
We're there already. I saw a picture of him
I know.
yesterday with Mark McKinnon.
Oh,
Went to
yeah.
visit him in Maine or something.
Yeah.
And it was like a family photo, like him and his wife
Yeah.
and Bush and his wife. And I was looking at G-Dub and I was like, I like that guy.
I know.
But I hated him. I hated him with every fiber of my body. And now I'm like,
so hard on him.
yeah.
Yeah.
Perspective is
know.
everything. Anyway, as always, I could sit here and talk to you for hours, which means you got to come back soon. And,
Okay.
be
Enjoy your
good.
coffee.
Yeah, you too. Be good.
Good to see you.
This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhinecliff, with additional editing by Maddie Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Lengale. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.